All right, guys, this is Norval Central coming back at you with another YouTube video, and I really appreciate all the love and support so far that you've showed on my social media accounts, on my YouTube as well. Trying to get back in the swing of things, man. It's super exciting. I'm streaming a little bit of College Football 27. If you haven't checked out those two streams, let me know, man. I might have gotten killed by Ohio State, the first ranked matchup that I had playing online against someone, and it was 28 to nothing at one point. So. Definitely not great. Still learning the game a little bit more. There's a couple new adjustments in the game, but just want to showcase Florida State and just how they are in the game, and really want to see where that goes specifically down the future with streaming a little bit more. But anyway, I just want to kind of go ahead and talk about Florida State recruiting. I know it's been a little bit more slower. You had the Sam Lejeune thing recently, and then you also have Tayshaun Poole coming up. But I think the biggest thing coming up in the next couple days is DaJohn Yarborough. And that is a guy from Chandler, Arizona. He's a four-star offensive lineman on the interior, 6'5", 340 pounds. He's a guy that Florida State's been raving about and just wanting this entire time. He, according to the 247 composite, he is the 426th best prospect in the country, the number 25 interior offensive lineman in the country. And teams like Mississippi State, California, Washington, and Florida State are the four teams that are involved in his commitment coming up this upcoming Saturday. And I just wonder kind of how it's going to go for Florida State because really, Herb Hand has not delivered on any offensive lineman commits in this recruiting class. And Florida State currently is sitting at number 58 in the country in terms of the 247 composite rates. That is not FAU. That is not FIU. That is Florida State we're talking about. And obviously, you only have 13 recruits that are committed to the class. And you do have some talented guys. I mean, you have Lejeune, who I think is a really good guy, top 150 prospect. Sean Green is a top 200 prospect that you got away from Georgia. And then Jaden Miles is another guy, a talented running back. You know, Albright is another guy, too, at the linebacker slash safety position. And then you got a couple other guys like Calvarado is another guy who I really like. He's a four-star also. They have some talent in this class. Even Jeremy Fordham is another guy they really like. And he's a guy that had 8 picks last year in his high school season. Logan Flaherty's obviously going to be your bell cow in this class, and he wants to be because he's a recruiter. He's a quarterback. You know, quarterbacks are always getting that huge attention. And if you're able to get Poole and then you're turning around and getting Yarborough, that would be a huge factor for Florida State. It's even more important that Florida State's able to get him because Florida State only hosted basically him they were really involved with in this recruiting cycle. It's a little bit more concerning because you look at it. Herb Hand has had several Power Four experiences throughout his coaching career, and you've only seen him getting three-star prospects and a couple of transfers here and there. It almost seems like he values the plug and play. And I know Florida State fans had a little bit more negativity towards a former offensive line coach in Alex Atkins. And I mean, who's to blame him? I mean, at this point, you know, Florida State really hasn't developed many high school recruits specifically. You're hoping that an Andre Otto this year, Sandman Thompson later in his career, hopefully he can be your starting center. Andre Otto is hopefully going to be your guard this year at one of the guard positions. But I just kind of wonder how Florida State's going to factor into a lot of things because I wonder what's going to happen with your offensive line. How are you going to be able to sell offensive line prospects if you're able to just bring in transfers? That's kind of the same thing with the quarterback position. I think about a time where Florida State brought in Ashton Daniels this past offseason. You had a Kevin Sperry, you had a Malachi Marshall who you brought in the JUCO ranks, and you thought both of those younger guys were going to step up and be there. But Florida State already named a one-year rental as their quarterback. Same thing they did with Thomas Castellanos and DJ Uyunglele, and then also with just some other guys, Mackenzie Milton too. I just think there's a whole lot of factors that go into it because of the quarterback position. You really haven't been successful since Jordan Travis and his development that he had to go through in that. But I just think Yarborough is a big guy that Florida State needs to get. Theoretically, I know he's just an interior offensive lineman. I know he's not the primarily offensive tackle that you really want in this class. But I do think that there are some special pieces that you can bring around this class. But the problem is you have to play those guys too. You cannot be able to have just the transfer portal guys coming in left and right and not being able to play those guys that you recruited out of high school. So I think it's really important for Florida State to step up here, being able to get through this type of process because I think Cal is probably the team that's going to be pushing the most in his recruitment. And I think they're the team that's been kind of in the distance with him, and I think this could be a recruitment coming down to both of those squads. We'll see if Cal kind of ponies up the money and how much money will Florida State kind of factor into. I understand it's Cal, and I get they're not great, and even Florida State's down years. Even when they have Mendoza at quarterback, Florida State was still able to beat them and still go 2-10. So you want to make sure that you get guys like this because they're very talented. They're hard to get at Florida State at this point, and you need to get it done. But the problem is too, the recruiting class is at number 58. They could get in the top 20, with a couple other talented guys and everything, but it all matters on how the season goes. But when you factor in that too, if the season's not going great and Mike Norvell's on the hot seat and he goes somewhere else and a new coaching staff comes in, what are you going to do? Or even if he does win, like you did in 22 and 23, they still didn't have a top 10 class. So you need to focus on high school recruiting. You're hoping that the front management staff and front office staff that they brought in is able to kind of be more organized. I like the way they're doing some of these recruiting philosophies now. They're getting guys that are attainable, that you don't break the bank for, but you still have a little bit more money. Think about college football 27, with the NIL system. You have these points, you have those allocated points. I know Michael Alford has stated before that they have basically a budget that they want to keep up with in the 22 million range. But you think, I know Florida State fans are talking about how Miami doesn't really have a whole lot of budget. He needs to quit being so cheap. I understand that. I get it. I understand the concerns because in today's landscape of college football, it seems like it's the Wild West. You're seeing Texas Tech bid for any kind of recruit they want and being able to get those kind of guys. Miami, same thing. So you're just seeing Florida State kind of go by the wayside and turning into almost a group of five school in terms of resources. But I understand Florida State's not in the best shape financially, but I do think that if you're able to get Yarborough in this class, I think it can be a really special piece for Florida State and their offensive line and kind of developing what you already have in this class. Because, you're looking at it, he turned over and was able to get a lot of transfers this offseason. So I just wonder what's going to happen with that. I don't know how sustainable it's going to be to keep getting these basically transfers to come in as one-year rentals because almost your whole offensive line. Paul Bowling was a great guy that they were able to get as a sophomore. He's going to have 3 years of eligibility, and you got even a Braden Joyner who's at least a junior, so at least he might have 2 years. It looks like there's just a couple of guys here that I think you can really turn to, and it hurts losing guys like Micah Pettis as well as Luke Pettibone, but I just wonder what's going to happen with at Yarborough if he was able to come in. How long is it going to take for his body to kind of get down? I know he probably doesn't want to stay technically at that 340 range. I know Carlton was a couple of years ago. Kanaya was another guy who I think they brought in the 22 class. Didn't really pan out at Florida State and was able to transfer out of here. But I just wonder what they're going to do with his body weight. Is it going to go down to like maybe 315? How is he going to go about college football if he is able to come to Florida State? But I do think this is a get that Florida State has to have in this class because they need it in this offensive line. You don't want to continue to get transfer portal guys and not being able to get some guys that you can grow and develop and hopefully have 2 or 3 years of continuity within your offensive line. But I really appreciate all the love and support so far on my videos. Be sure to share your thoughts on what Florida State recruiting, how you feel about it, how you feel about the whole financial situation that Florida State's going through. What do you think about Yarborough's skills and just what he brings to the table for Florida State? Do you think Herb Hand can bring him in on the 11th? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, go Noles.